Welcome into Inside the Pack. With me, as always, is Dan Webster. I'm Michael Wazinski, and here we are for Episode 3, following the first two games of 11 straight for the Ice Wolves at the Outpost Ice Arenas. And Dan, what did you think of those two games against the Shreveport Mudbugs?
Well, once again, this Ice Wolves team is really coming together offensively. They've shown a much better defensive look. Interesting change of lines between Friday and Saturday night. So obviously, Coach Phil Fox was doing his best to mix things up a little bit, get a little more energy. The Mudbugs are a big team. They are an experienced team. They had a whole lot of experience against our inexperienced guys. But our guys never quit. I mean, they just never quit. The Ice Wolves were taking the game to them. They were doing the best they could in terms of dishing out the hits and taking the hits. I just thought it was an excellent outing for both teams. It would have been stupendous had they scored a few more goals, but the games were just fun to watch, and it was just a great weekend. This team is getting better.
Oh, absolutely, Dan. I mean, they put up 69 shots through two games. They've had a few games in Odessa where they were in the low 20s range, especially that first night, 22-20, when they were shut out 2-0. Now they're producing 30-plus shots a night against a team that's 2 years out from the Robertson Cup season. There's just so many tremendous things to talk about this team. Where they were at from day one, now they got 15 games in the books. They are a fourth of the way done their inaugural season. Obviously, only 3 points to show for it. One being two of those points being a win. This team will certainly start to develop and produce more as time goes on. That's a given. Right now, it's again still growing pains, still brand new, still a lot of players on the team, still trying to develop that chemistry with the adjustment of the lines over that weekend, due in part to some injuries, some players being out for certain reasons, and I don't think that it really dampered too much on the team's play, because again they moved Garvey and Johnson, who are defensemen, up to the fourth line offense with Brent Pedersen in the middle, and they still were within one goal of the Mudbugs. And we can run it back to that very first goal that the Mudbugs scored shorthanded. It was a turnover at the Ice Wolves blue line. Again, the Ice Wolves were on the man advantage, and it was right at the Mudbugs blue line. And it was a turnover and a breakout play for number 21 for the Mudbugs. I believe his name was Ryan Waltman. He just went the other way, went one-on-one with Josh Graziano, who started Saturday. Backing him up was Henrik Larsson. And Friday night's game was Josh Langford in between the pipes. But Waltman went one-on-one with Graziano, beat him, and that kind of just set the tone there for kind of how that special teams was going to play out. Both sides were getting a plethora of man advantages, and Friday's game we saw each team net a power play opportunity. And as for Saturday's game, we didn't see anybody crack the board on power play, but they did have one shorthanded goal, and then after that, they tacked on one more before Gabrielson was able to score towards the end of the third period. Just time was not on the side of New Mexico. They ran out, and like you said on air, had they had 3 more minutes, I'm sure they would have been able to get one. Even with Graziano pulled, they just still weren't able to muster up that extra goal to get past Richie Perrant.
Well, I think we talked about it on air on Friday night. That if the Ice Wolves were able to maintain the control on penalties, that penalties were going to dictate the game if they were going to get called. The number of penalty minutes increased as the game went on, and into Saturday night as well. I think that it was it was just unfortunate. And again, I'm sure that Phil Fox is going to sit down and talk to each player who was in the penalty box about whether or not it was a good penalty. And there are some penalties that are good, and there are some that just aren't very smart. And so that, I am sure, is a discussion that is going to be going on between Phil and the players over this weekend. But it was hard because the Mudbugs were so physical, and they were taking some hits that were very questionable in terms of location, elbows to the neck area or the head area. One of our players, I mean, it was just and not being called. And so I think that it's very true that you can't always point to the referees and say, well, they called it, and here I am sitting in the penalty box. You just got to play smarter. And I think that's if there's anything that this young team is learning is to play smarter. And I think that's going to do them well going into this upcoming homestand.
There was even a big fight this past weekend too between Zach Frisk and Scarino of the Mudbugs, and that kind of played into the whole penalty minutes because the Mudbugs came into this weekend with 277 penalty minutes, the most in the South. They end the weekend still with the most, but at 306. The Ice Wolves came in third most penalized team in the South Division at 236, and they ended the weekend with 279. The Mudbugs are just one penalty minute shy of tying the most in the league, held by the Jamestown Rebels at 307 penalty minutes. The Ice Wolves are in the top 5 for being the most penalized team in the North American Hockey League. So, with that being said, I do think that, standing up for your team is very important. And what happened with Frisk, there was a no-brainer that he was going to go after Scarino for kind of what transpired right in front of the fans, basically, and closest to the broadcast booth. He was receiving a few extra hits. It appeared that the Mudbug player started it, but Frisk wasn't going to let it end. Even though he was on the receiving end of a few punches from the beginning, he kind of finished it out with punching the Mudbug player while he was on the ground. So due in part to Frisk being out for Saturday's game and one game next weekend as well. But with that being said, again, I think this team can really start to play that physical game. They're not intimidated anymore by some teams like they maybe have been in the beginning, especially those 2 games in Lone Star. I do think the physicality got to a few of the Ice Wolves players. I think the size of some of the Brahmas players really were able to kind of have their way with Ice Wolves players, especially some of the rookies out there. But now you're seeing that do a complete 180 over the last 3-4 games per se, and now this team, Zach Frisk, not the biggest guy on the team, but going after a guy quite larger than him. You got Griffen Sanom doing the same thing as well. So these guys again aren't your go-to fighters like your Keaton Johnsons or maybe your Emil Gabrielsons, the bigger forwards on the team, not only height-wise but weight behind them as well. But now you got Sanom and Fritz going after the opposition. So I think that's huge confidence boost to the team. I think that bodes well for them going forward. And we're about 5 days out now from game 1 and game 3 on home ice for the Ice Wolves, and this time it will be against a brand new face, the Fairbanks Ice Dogs, out of the Midwest Division.
When Zach Frisk came off the ice at the end of that period, and I said, Zach, can I talk to you? And he looked at me, and he had blood coming down, off of his nose. And I said, oh, I wanted to interview you, but go ahead, go take care of that. And so he went into the dressing room to do that. But he came back out, and that's when they were sorting out the penalties and all of that was going on the ice. And so that was when I had, I said, are you feeling okay? Could we do an interview? And he said, sure, yeah. And so he was all energized, obviously, having come off from that. But from what I saw, and I was down by the tunnel when that altercation broke out, And it sure looked to me, as you said, that it seemed that the Mudbug was the one who just kept taunting Zach. Now, if it was their intention to get him kicked out of the game, they did a good job of that, because he had been like a real torment to them. He'd been, doing hits. He'd been all over the ice. He was skating like crazy, and just doing such a good job in that game. And so talking to Zach was, he obviously, he says, we're not going to back down from these guys. He's only 5'9", and Griffen Sanom's only 5'9", and they're both talking to me about saying, I'm not going to back down from these guys. That shows you the level of commitment that these kids have.
And you said it perfectly, Dan. I mean, these guys aren't going to back down from anybody. They don't care if they won the Robertson Cup 3 years ago, 2 years ago, or even last year. They don't care if it's going to be the best team in the South or whatever division you're going to throw at them. This team, you can clearly see, is starting to finally click. Not only producing goals now instead of being shut out. While again they had that one game in Odessa where it was 2-0, but again they were just behind by 2 in shots, and I think they missed the net just a few times. 16 seconds in, it was Frisk to Gabrielson on the far side, and Gabrielson just hit the post with the shot, and then the net was also kicked off its pegs. And then also Rudrud had an opportunity that game on the backhand. He just couldn't lift it up as it was bobbling over his tape. Those 2 plays go in the back of the net. It's 2-2 going into overtime. This team, we go back to Friday's game. They produced 3 goals, 2 by Philip Ekberg, marking his first 2 goals ever in his NAHL career. Goals like that, it's hard to come by when you're playing the 3rd best goalie in the league, averaging just over 1 goal allowed a game, and the Ice Wolves were able to put up not just 1, not just 2, but 3 goals on Air Force commit Mason Balboa. Tremendous goaltender for the Mudbugs. They also have Richie Perrant, who's another spectacular goaltender, but these guys will be leaving the Mudbugs in the next season, so they're going to age out. So will a lot of their team. Over 10 players on the Mudbugs will have to age out, due in part to them being 99s this season. For the Ice Wolves, they only have 4. As of going into this weekend, they only had 4 99s on the roster, meaning that they're going to have a large portion of the roster being able to return, develop all season long, play with one another, and get even better for next season. Again, this is how you kind of develop and build a team from the ground up in any sport, and when you're a brand new team. Again, I understand that the Maine Nordiques are having a good start to their inaugural season at 8-7, but if you look at their roster, they aren't the youngest team in the league to start out. The Ice Wolves are. They have a few more vets on their team that can carry the load, at least for their inaugural season. But it would be interesting to see where they play out next year. The Maryland Black Bears were brand new last year and were dead last in the East Division. Now they are coming up, and now they're doing 6-7-1, roughly 500. They're keeping pace with all the other teams at 13 points. Maybe they get a sweep this weekend. I'm not quite sure who they play, but they earn 4 points. They're already up in 4th place, if they're able to earn a sweep. So that's a team as well that's starting to find their legs in their second season in the NAHL level. So,
and as you have said in the past, this Southern Division, the South Division, is a tough one. That this is one of the tougher divisions in the NAHL.
Absolutely. I mean, you can look back, throughout history. This has been a very tough division, not just physically, not just height-wise and size-wise, but the competition has just been fierce. These guys, it's either going to be a blowout game or it's going to be a really close game. And the Ice Wolves have been on the receiving end of both of those. And you got guys on here or within every team that will go, we saw Bentley commit in Matt Weber over this weekend. Again, Air Force commit Balboa. While the Ice Wolves only commit right now is Josh Langford, University of Maine. I mean, Graziano is going to get committed for sure. We're not sure where yet, but he's been getting a lot of looks, producing tremendously well. 27 saves for him on Saturday. Langford was Langford was up in the high 20s on Friday as well, even though he led in 6. But, some were just tough bounces that unfortunately went in favor of the Mudbugs. But 2 of the last 3 winners of the Rob Burnsley Cup were in the South Division. And when you start out in the South Division, that's tough. It's 7 teams now. Only 4 make the playoffs. It's, 3 teams will have to go home early. And I would love for the Ice Wolves to see them get into the playoffs in their inaugural season. We're basically done 2 months of their first season ever in the NAHL. And they got 3 points, but this is a team that 1 or 2 things go their way, they can start developing a really long stretch here. Maybe not just of wins, but at least of a long point streak. Still plenty of games left to be played. 45 games for the Ice Wolves. Still a lot of time to turn things around, but it's got to happen sooner rather than later for them.
Yeah, I think that you're right. It's just been wonderful to watch this team grow. I mean, they clearly had in those first couple of home games that I saw, it was very clear to me that they had some things that they had to work on, and not the least of which was offense, nor the least of which was defense. And so I think that they've clearly been doing that. They've been making roster changes. They have brought in a couple of new players from the Maryland Black Bears. They brought in a couple of new players from the Omaha Lancers that have looked really good in the last couple of games. That was Andrew Causel who's from Omaha, Nebraska. And the other one was Mitchell Becker, who's from Rogers, Minnesota. And Mitchell was playing defense on Saturday, and he was looking like he was making an impression. They're both 18 years old, so we've got some good signs of improvement and hope here. This is not by any stretch a team that is down on its luck. This is a team that is obviously making progress, but also they're showing our fans a good time. They're showing our fans really good hockey. Even as I said I saw some of the players this morning when they were finishing up practice, and I said, "You had a couple of good games, guys. The score just didn't go our way, but they had 2 very good games this past weekend."
Yeah, and another thing about the fans is that they are supporting, and that's what we need out of the community here in Albuquerque. We need you, the fans, to show up every home game and keep backing this team, because again, it's going to be a long season here of the 2019-2020 season for the New Mexico Ice Wolves. It's going to be a grueling season. There's going to be most likely, I'd say, a lot more downs than there will be ups just because of how brand new they are. But I do think that, the ups towards the end of the season will start to kind of even out the downs. I think that there will be times where you will see this team, go through maybe a little bit of a lull like they did. It took them 13 games to get their first win, but now they are so eager to get another one. They like that taste of victory. They want it, it was so sweet to them to get it 13 games. I mean, nobody's more rewarding than the Ice Wolves during this season, to persevere through everything and get that win. 4-3, the most ever goals scored by them in a game against the Odessa Jackalopes, a team that's just 1 spot above them in the division. That was a huge win for them. They just, they will start producing, but they need to make sure that they also have the community behind them. They want to see maybe even new faces that have never watched a hockey game come out. This is very intense hockey, great level here at the junior level, tier 2 of the North American Hockey League, and it's never, it never ceases to amaze me how these games go, because hockey's so unpredictable, and it only takes a matter of a split second or a crazy bounce or, a ricochet off of somebody to, kind of change the tides and completely, momentum's a huge factor as well in hockey. And that's kind of what we saw on Friday's game. You could see the Mudbugs starting to maybe take the wind out of the Ice Wolves' sails by producing a few more goals and kind of scoring a few unanswered on them throughout as the game continued on, especially in that second period. They tacked on two and then got one quick in the third period before Ekberg was able to score his second of the night late, in the third period. But this team, is near sellouts every time. 800 fans in attendance for, I'd say, at least every game. And not only that, but we had our first ever specialty jerseys worn this weekend, which went tremendous. We partnered with the American Cancer Society for making strides against cancer. That went over really well. And then we had our first ever auction following Saturday's game.
I'd like to get back to that in just a second, but before we get off the fan experience here, I was talking to Chet, the play-by-play guy from Shreveport.
Great guy.
And yeah, I mean, he was great to talk to. We we exchanged some information. He's got a great sense of humor, but he was really talking about the arena and how there's not a bad seat in the house. That the fact that you can see so much of the ice and be so close to the ice, you're going to experience hockey in a much more intimate way in the Outpost Ice Arena sheet than you will in any one of the bigger arenas. And you travel around, you go into some of them that had upper bowls, and sometimes you're, 75 feet above the ice and all of that. But the fan experience here is so different and so exciting, and it puts you so close to the ice. So I've really got to believe that the reason that we've had continuing near sellouts. First opening game obviously was a sellout because there was such hunger in this community for hockey to come back. But I think the reason that's going on is because people are talking about it with their friends. They're bringing them to the games. I think that this is something that you should really come and experience for yourselves. And again, as I talked about it on the last podcast, you can either get skates or bring your own skates, pay only $10, and you can stand right by the glass in the corners of both tunnels that link the two ice sheets here at the Outpost Ice Arenas, and see a level of ice level view of hockey that I don't think you can find that in any other arena. So come on out, get some tickets, come to a game, enjoy it. This is really exciting hockey that's happening here, and when we have those promotions like that, it was just wonderful here this weekend, seeing so much pink in the rink.
Oh, it really was, and. For it being our first ever specialty jerseys, I think it went over really well. I mean, we raised, I believe the number I heard was over 12,000. All the jerseys that were sold after Saturday's game, or all the jerseys that were sold this weekend, all the proceeds went to the American Cancer Society, making strides against cancer. Their kind of subdivision that we partner with for this past weekend. It was a great feel. It was so nice walking around, seeing everybody wear pink in the rink, and that was a big thing for me because 2 weekends ago, I should say, we were in Odessa, and they did a pink in the rink day. They didn't really have a weekend of it. They had to compete with that high school football rivalry game on Friday, but they did one on Saturday. They didn't wear specialty jerseys for it, but they had pink tape on their sticks and pink laces for the players' skates. And they were, tons of fans showed up to support wearing pink shirts and all sorts of stuff. It was just great to see there, and it was really nice to see it here at the Outpost Ice Arena. It's great to see it wherever you go because you're bringing awareness to such a good cause, and hopefully one day there will be a cure.
We're sitting here in the pro shop, and I'm looking at a light pink hat that has the pink logo, the altered logo of the Ice Wolves, and there are pink T-shirts, and there's still stuff that's here. If you want to get something, just come on up to the Ice Arena, to the pro shop, pick up some pink Ice Wolves gear. It's really good looking, and I think that they were selling. I was looking around. They were selling pink. laces. Yeah, there they are. There's some pink laces that you can get for your skates if you really want to dress yourself up. So I think that would be something for you to continue to carry on this breast cancer awareness, even though October is coming to an end here this week. Breast cancer awareness is still something that is important. I'm so glad to hear how much money that was raised over the past weekend for this making strides against breast cancer. It's just critical that, and I am sure that every one of us knows. I think the woman from American Cancer Society who spoke,
Hannah, she's a tremendous girl.
What a great spokesperson. And when she talks
Absolutely.
about 1 in 8 women in the United States at one time in their lives will suffer from breast cancer. That does increase the number of people that I'm sure we all know somebody who has had to deal with breast cancer, and this was just, I mean, that says that the New Mexico Ice Wolves are part of the New Mexico community, and that they're willing to partner with nonprofits to really bring about a better community. And it's not just that the Ice Wolves want you to come and buy tickets. They want you to help the Ice Wolves be a part of this community and make positive change here in New Mexico and in Albuquerque.
Great points, Dan. Keena Johnson's jersey went for $1,000 on Saturday night, and that was huge. Again, all those jerseys game worn. Players were autographing them afterwards, taking it right off their back, handing it to the person that won the bid. And there was a great turnout that stayed afterwards. You know, I've seen auctions at this junior level, and it's a hit or miss sometimes. And I really think we hit it out of the park on Saturday night.
Congratulations to the Ice Wolves and to Alyssa Roach, who put this whole thing together. I mean, she's the director of marketing and communications here, and she's doing so many things behind the scenes. I see her down there in the tunnels talking to when she's arranged to have the mites that are going to be out there skating, and she's trying to wrangle them. She's the mite wrangler, and she tries to make sure that they're out of the way when the team comes off the ice. She just is doing such a great job here.
Well, before you end the month of October, again, we were touching on, you know, how Breast Cancer Awareness Month is almost over. You know, there's so many different forms of cancer. They kind of all have their own unique month and to kind of raise awareness for it. But with October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, don't forget that there is another special thing happening here at the Outpost right before the end of October, and that is our Halloween at the Outpost, October 31st. From 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m., we got public skating, costume contests, games, giveaways, and much, much more. So we were talking about that on our broadcast Friday and Saturday, and just kind of talking about how we're going to have about half the team here at the Outpost. You know, you can even get autographs, and maybe some of them might show up in a costume. So this week, again, 31st, make sure to come out to the Outpost. The other half of the group will be going to the mall, doing some stuff there as well. So it's just going to be all around good fun and a good night to come out. Maybe if you don't live in a neighborhood and you have nowhere maybe to take your kid or kids trick or treating, we'll have them come here, play some games with some of the players, and it's just going to be all around good fun here at the Outpost Ice Arenas.
That's this Thursday evening from 5:30 to 8 p.m. It looks great. They've even altered the logo a little bit to put on the nose, where the nose of the Ice Wolves logo is to replicate a balloon for the balloon fiesta. Well, what they've done in this logo is they've put a jack-o'-lantern in the nose, and boy, does that look good. And then down on the chin, where you think that you're going to see the mountains and the moon and the stars and all of that, they have a witch on a broom with a black cat right behind her. So we're having fun with Halloween at the Outpost. The Ice Wolves, half the team will be here. Grab your friends, come up. There'll be games, giveaways, costume contests. And if you want to do some public skating, you can do that too. So that's this Thursday, October 31st, Halloween, 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Now you can make sure to get your tickets for the following 2 games. Again, Friday, Saturday, Ice Wolves versus the Ice Dogs. It's going to be a bloodhound game here at the Outpost. And Friday's game 7:30, Saturday's game 7 o'clock, as always, for our entire home schedule. Every Friday, 7:30, every Saturday, 7 o'clock. So again, make sure you get your tickets in advance. Brand new team, one of the 2 Alaska teams making their trip all the way here to Albuquerque, New Mexico. The team will then go and play both Alaska teams around the middle of January for roughly, I think it was 12 to 14 days. We're going to be gone during that stretch. So, a long stretch in Alaska, but here, you finally get some home ice advantage, not just for a weekend, but for 5 weekends.
I've been to Alaska a few times. You're going to have a great time up there. Let me tell you, it's just one of the most beautiful places on earth.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it, and I have to reach out to the broadcasters. I would love the opportunity to go, but I want to make sure if I get there, I can do my job, and just like the players, they want to make sure when they get there they can do theirs as well. And so joining us on Inside the Pack is Griffen Sanom. Griffen, thank you so much for joining us for our 3rd episode of Inside the Pack.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
So, big weekend, this past weekend. Obviously, you guys, came close in that second game. I think the first one, the score was not indicative of how the game actually played. It was a 6-3 final on Friday. They had one or two few puck luck opportunities, but again, you guys are now starting to get on the scoreboard more frequently. You're keeping the games close. You outshot them on Friday, actually, and then yesterday was Saturday was a 2-1 loss, and against a very tough Shreveport team, but 2 years out from the Robertson Cup season. So what does that feel like to you guys? Now you guys are really starting to gel together as a team. What's that feel like as a player?
Yeah, I think we're making positive strides each game. I think Friday, the final score was 6-3. I think they had 3 power play goals, so you take those penalties away, it's a 3-3 game. And then Saturday, I thought we outshot them and outplayed them. I think at the end of the day, we just need to capitalize on our chances and, stay true to our game. I think we learned Friday we can't control what the referees call at the end of the day. You just got to play through it. And, Shreveport is a certain game. They like to play, they're bigger and they like to, get in after it after the whistles and, try to distract you from your game. And I think once we started to stay focused, I thought we played better on Saturday. So just enjoy the game and keep plugging away here.
So you had you actually played in this league before, not just with the Ice Wolves, but with the Brookings Blizzard back in 2017, the 81 overall draft pick for them. 25 games played during that season, 2 goals, 1 assist. Compare that division to the South. What was that transition like for you once you got that first game in Shreveport to kick off the inaugural season?
I think I was younger too back then, so I think my role on the team was a little different too then and compared to now. And I think being a younger kid, the game's faster to you than when you're older. So I think the Central is the Central. I think they're based on speed and skill, and I think the South is a little more, I would say, college hockey based. It's grit, it's everything, it's speed, it's skill. You gotta do the details right if you want to win the games. And I think as a team we need to work on the details. I know I need to work on the details. Just little things. I think the little things are what's getting us to where we are now, and I think we need to pick up on them. But I think my time in Brookings was great, and I loved it, and great learning experience. I think the younger guys are going through what I went through, there. You're just kind of learning. Your first year in the league, you're learning and just trying to be a sponge and soak it in and learn and just keep going. So
absolutely, and that was a big thing that you just said was soak it in, and I really think these guys were, maybe starstruck. We came in as the youngest team, and I think a lot of them, obviously were welcomed in pretty quickly by some of the other bigger opponents that you guys have faced. But now that this weekend you guys got the Fairbanks Ice Dogs. The Ice Wolves play two non-division foes, both of them the Alaska team. So Kenai and the Fairbanks Ice Dogs. We will make a trip up there middle of January for almost 2 weeks and play those two teams on the road. But now you see Fairbanks for the first time, and they're actually making their way up through the Midwest Division. They are now at 19 points. They ended up sweeping Amarillo this past weekend. So they're a team that is not opposed, to making a long run. They've, have had success last year as well, representing their division in the Robertson Cup playoffs. And then after that, you guys have the South Division leaders, Topeka Pilots. So these next 4 games for you, again, it's going to be a long 11-game homestand. What is your take on some of these new faces you're going to see here at the Outpost?
Well, I think at the end of the day, everyone's in the same league for a reason. We're not intimidated by anybody. Us being a young team, I think if the fans don't know by now, we're trying to build a franchise here. Being a younger team, we're setting ourselves up for next year. If you take a look at the Chippewa Steel, for example, they were a new expansion team last year. They're having a year that we had this year right now, a difficult year, but they were making strides. And this year, I think they're 10-2 right now, or 8-2, I believe. So, I mean, it just correlates. You're building for the future, and I think we're not really intimidated by anyone at this point, nor should we be, and I don't think we are. I think we're making steps, and I just think that everyone's in the same league for a reason. Anyone could beat anyone on any given night. It's all about basically who wants it more, and they may be more experienced on the depth chart, but it's hockey. Anything can happen.
Griffen, I've noticed that the offensive production has really, really come into place, and given the number of shots on goal that this team has had, it's been exciting. But one of the most exciting things for me to watch is the energy that you have on the ice, and you're not afraid to go in and make those hits, and you're not afraid to take those hits. What are you saying to your teammates, do you think, by your style of play?
I try to lead by example. I think, just compete hard. At the end of the day, I think being a smaller guy, if you play afraid, that's when you get hurt, So I think part of my game is grit and, just competing hard. And I think my play sets the tone for, for the younger guys or for anybody, really. Anyone can step up and set the tone at the end of the day on our team. Everyone is a leader, and I think everybody can lead in some way and some example. And I think the compete level can be shown out of everyone.
I was really impressed with the shot on goal that you had. That was that little pirouette that you did down on the ice. I think that anybody who was here or anybody who was watching it on TV had to think of PK Subban, because he's been known for that. In fact, his coach at one time told him he had to cut that out. But what did you think? Was that your only option at that point, did you think?
I've done that move before. So I was mishandling the puck a little bit, and the goal was just to try to get it on net. I think in any one-on-one situation, you want to try to get a shot off, and I think when you cut to the middle, it sucks in that defenseman, and then it gave me the opportunity to do what I did. But at the end of the day, I was just trying to get it on net and, create a chance.
Well, I've got to be honest with you. It is so much fun to watch you play hockey. You obviously love this game in a way that I haven't seen in a lot of young players in a long time. So,
thank you.
Whatever you're doing, keep it up, because it's gonna bring dividends to you. I think that's just my personal opinion.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. Now.
Kick rocks.
So Griffen, I just one or two questions left, and then we can we'll let you go here. But one of the big things that we see a lot at this level of hockey is the three-man system, and that's the three-man crew, the officiating group, one ref, two linesmen. What is your take on maybe some of the stuff that goes away from the play? You were involved in a big altercation at the end of the second period over this weekend. And that, I think, made it, we were talking about it from my perspective, at least. I think it boiled over from just stuff not getting called and frustration, building up, inside of you, and you kind of just had enough, which I completely understand. Everybody at one point, if I said this on air, I said if they're not going to call it, matters are going to go into the players' hands if the officials can't, get control of the game. And I think that's what happened at the end of the second period. Can you kind of allude or attest to, what transpired there at the end of the second?
I don't know. Hockey's a game of emotion, so I think sometimes it gets the best of you and stuff happens. I was taking a lot of hits during the game, and I got frustrated. I obviously should control my emotions a little better, but I think sorry. Got creepy toes over here. Sorry, folks. I think I don't know. I think everybody needs to control their emotions, but I think what we learned Saturday is we can't control what the refs call. So you just got to kind of play through it, and that type of stuff happens during a game. If you watch NHL games, it happens. I mean, the refs took both of us. It was 4-on-4, so you just gotta, I have faith in my team, so it is what it is.
What's the message have to be this week leading up to playing the Fairbanks Ice Dogs? I mean, you guys, are still in search of that first home ice win, and you have, now 9 left on home ice to try to secure that win. What does it, and after two very honestly close games this past weekend, that had that shorthander not happen on Saturday, you could have went into overtime. That's how close that Saturday's matchup was against Shreveport. But what, leading up to the Fairbanks Ice Dogs, your first non-division opponent, what does the message have to be on the ice? Maybe not even coming from Phil or Keena, but maybe just from the players.
I think we got to continue to trust the process. I think we're making strides with each game. We want the fans to know that we're doing our best to, get our first home ice win. I think our first win in Odessa, I think we all learned that everyone's got to sell out to get a win. Everybody's got to chip in, and I think it's no different with any other opponent. Everybody's got to do their job and figure it out from there. But once everybody chips in and we get a group effort, I think we'll get our first home win. We're still putting it together, but we'll see.
Is the team coming together really well? It seemed when we were observing the game, that Sunday game that we had against Lone Star, it seemed in that second period that things just really turned around. Do you get a sense that the team is really coming together now?
Yeah, I think no other organization is going through what we are right now. I think, which makes everyone closer in the room. If a team's struggling and we're all struggling together, I think it makes you brothers even more. So at the end of the day, everybody has a mentality that these are our brothers and we're going to war with each other every night. And I think, everybody would do anything for anyone in that room. So it's about just cleaning up the details, I think. I don't think it's a team chemistry thing. I think, just putting together a win. We're young, we're inexperienced, few vets on the team, but we're figuring it out.
So what about Albuquerque? How do you like living here? How do you like the food? What's been fun?
I love Albuquerque. It starts with the billet families too. If you have a great billet family, which I think everybody does, it makes your time much more enjoyable. I love I'm living with Jareen Cordova and Mike Hoffman, so a special shout out to them. I love them. But I think it starts with the billet families, and then honestly, you're always with the guys 24/7, so which makes it that much more enjoyable. And I think you're just exploring the city all the time. So, you go out to eat with your teammates. You go out and just explore. The other day we went to a UNM game, so it was fun.
Yeah, and they've had some tough competition. over their course of the season, going up against some tougher foes like Notre Dame, but then they go up against New Mexico State, and that was a very high scoring affair, 50 plus points for both teams during that interstate rivalry. But this weekend, New Mexico Ice Wolves 1-13-0-1, going up against the Fairbanks Ice Dogs, second place in the Midwest Division at 9-4-0-1, team that just swept the Amarillo Bulls, who sit in fifth place in the South Division. So, Griffen, thank you so much for joining us for our third episode of Inside the Pack, and we look forward to seeing you guys hopefully secure not one but two on home ice this weekend against the Ice Dogs.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. Thanks.
Well, Dan, again, Griffen Sanom just joining us moments ago, and, that was great, what he was talking about, how the team has been developing and not backing down from anybody like we were kind of talking about early in the podcast, and he's such a good guy to talk to and to see play. He's a guy that gets a lot of scoring opportunities. He's a guy that has been held off of the score sheet, throughout his career. He's got 3 goals in now 39 games played, or actually make that 3 goals in 40 games played. But he's a guy that grinds it out. He loves the sport, like you were saying, and he would do anything to see his team succeed. He's a guy that really will put forth 110%. He still has another year to go in this league. He's only a 2000, so he's got plenty of time to stick around here in Albuquerque, New Mexico for his final season next year. If that is, unless he goes up to a higher level.
I was very impressed with him, not only in the post-game interview that I did, or the post-period interview I did with him, but also here today, just looking at how excited he is when he talks about this game. And of course, when you're holding a microphone and it's not something that you're used to doing, you do get a little reserved, but he is not reserved on the ice, folks. Let me tell you, he is not reserved on the ice. He is always making things happen. If you see Griffen Sanom on the ice, you know that something's going to happen. Just watching him is exciting. He's fast. And as he said in the interview, he's not afraid to admit that he mishandled the puck a little bit. He's the perfect kind of developing player, I think, that this league and this team is blessed to have on it.
Well, he's from Berkeley, Michigan, 5'9", 170 pounds, and last year he played for the Syracuse Junior Stars of the NCDC. 48 games played, 13 goals, 19 assists. And then he was. We were talking about earlier again, he was with the Brookings Blizzard, their 81st draft pick in 2017. He had 25 games played for them, 2 goals, 1 assist during his first ever NAHL season. So he's been doing tremendous things. He's gotten one with us already this season. Still 45 games left to go in the season. We're going to be seeing him out there, I would say, for a large portion of those games.
And I was really interested to hear what he had to say about hockey being an emotional game, and you have to, kind of keep those emotions in check. When he was with Syracuse, he had 56 penalty minutes. And then when he was playing for St. Mary's Prep, he had 60 penalty minutes. So he clearly is working on keeping those emotions in check, so that if he does take a penalty, it's going to be a smart penalty. I think that he knows the difference between a smart penalty and a dumb one. And so I think he's working on that. That's what you do in a development league to prepare you to move forward and move on up.
Well, they don't call it the League of Opportunity for nothing, Dan. And, it's again, we were talking about the officiating. It's not just a League of Opportunity for the players, but also for the officials who are battling, trying to corral a very tough South Division with 2 less eyes out there. And I would love to see this league go to the 4-man system. I've been saying that for the last, this is second year being a broadcaster for a team. I've been saying it since I entered it. I think it's, you're just missing that extra little bit of security when you're wearing the black and white stripes, with having 2 more sets of eyes out there. So I think, again, they do what the best they can with what they are given. but I would love to see them just add in that extra guy. I think there's enough people out there that want to become refs. I know a lot of people that are interested in going to reffing clinics and coaching clinics, and I think that it would be an opportunity. Again, you add one more for a weekend or so. It's just a few extra guys. I don't know the logistics or anything. If one day they might go that route, but you get up to the higher levels, they all have 4 officials. So I think they're missing out on that, and then you see the games get away from the officials. You see it. Instead of them being the ones in charge, it now becomes, the players are just kind of throwing caution to the wind with what they're doing, because I don't think sometimes they know if what they're doing is going to be called or not, because earlier maybe it wasn't called, so they're going to keep it, and now it's called. So the consistency needs to be talked about as well, and that's not just with the officials here. It's everywhere. I would love to see. I know it's human error. I know this is the fastest sport on the face of the earth. So I understand I can never do what they do. But just coming from basically where the fans sit at, you see stuff a lot differently than you do on the ice. Just like the players do, we see things develop before they do because of their field of view compared to ours. But
the fight that Zach Frisk got into on Friday night and was called the aggressor when the penalties were announced. After my interview with him, I came upstairs and I ran into Greg Bronson, who I interviewed on our second game. Greg has played hockey all his life. He's from Winnipeg. He's been very active here as a player, as a referee, and a coach here at the Outpost Ice Arena for the last 30 years. He said that the linesman did not get in and wrap his arms around Zach Frisk, and he says if the linesman doesn't come in, you assume that the fight's going to continue, and so that's why the fight continued, and so that, I hope, was a lesson that linesman who didn't come in and as quick as he should have. I hope that was an opportunity for him to learn that he's going to help prevent things from getting out of hand if he can get in there, wrap his arms around the player who's doing the fighting. That's just some basic hockey stuff.
Yeah, and in situations with fighting or even post-whistle altercations, after a goalie makes a save, we've seen a lot of that already this season through 15 games. You'll see a lot of, net scrambles that result in, once the whistle's finally blown, it kind of will continue on. And I think in part of that, the officials need to kind of put their foot down. I think we saw that in Game 2, and especially in the Lone Star Sunday afternoon game, we were seeing that more towards the end. I think things started to get a little out of hand in that game. But that's how this South Division is, not just here at the Outpost. It's everywhere and every division with every team. I think you add 2 more extra eyes out there. You add an extra body that can see stuff away from the play. We always talk about how they always get the retaliation penalty and they never get the initial one. And I think that speaks volumes to this level of hockey because, again, with that extra man out, we don't have instant replay. We don't have the ability to have 2 referees talk to one another. Now it's a ref and 2 linesmen. You always have to have 2 linesmen. And I always think you should always have 2 referees. And I think hopefully one day they go down that route. I know, the coaches would love for that to happen. I know the players would love for that to happen. I think it's a no-brainer. I just don't work for the league. I don't, I don't know what the logistics and the parameters would have to be to have an extra man, do that. But I just think you would see games be really in control of the officials and not getting away from them so quickly into the game. I mean,
let's see if the league will learn something from this.
There was about 6 penalty minutes for each team during Friday's game. I mean, it tampered down a little bit. The Ice Wolves had 6 power play opportunities again on Saturday. Unfortunately, they weren't able to convert on any. Shreveport at 3. But, you see teams like this that 2 of the top 3 most penalized teams in the South Division going after one another. And the Ice Wolves went from 236 penalty minutes on Friday to the end of it at 271. That's what they started Saturday's game with, 271 penalty minutes. So a huge change in just from 35 penalty minutes they earned in one game. In 60 minutes they earned 35 penalty minutes. A large part was due to Frisk's fight, which obviously adds to all of it. Like Henry and Garvey, they've been on the receiving end of some large penalty minute games, so obviously that plays a factor. But still, it's situations like that that need to just be addressed, in my opinion. But who do I know? I'm just a broadcaster. So,
well, we do have opinions. Hockey fans and hockey broadcasters do have opinions. So, and my opinion is that if you want to see some exciting hockey, get some tickets. Come out this Friday and Saturday night to see one of the two Alaska teams that are in the NAHL. This will be the Fairbanks Ice Dogs. At 7 o'clock on Friday night, 7:30 on Friday night, and 7 o'clock on Saturday. So it's 7:30 this Friday night, 7 p.m. on Saturday night.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining me here on Inside the Pack, episode number 3, and as well for our interview special guest with Griffen Sanom, the forward from Berkeley, Michigan. I'm Michael Wazinski. We'll see you next week, folks. Episode number 4 coming out after our 2 games against the Fairbanks Ice Dogs.
Thanks for listening to Inside the Pack.
How was one?